welcome to the Chester Pride Just Ask stream. I really hope this mic is picking up my audio okay. I haven't used it before, I didn't get a chance to test it. We'll find out as we go along. So welcome to the stream. The idea behind this is that we're going to have just a great... During the kind of COVID crisis, we realised that there's a lot of people out there that still need access to help, support and information around LGBT, and this is a great way for us to provide a little bit of that service whilst everyone's locked down at home. So today we're going to be chatting a little bit about kind of trans stuff. It was Trans Day of Visibility just a couple of weeks ago, so we're going to pick up on kind of any questions you might have around trans issues and what Trans Day of Visibility is. And we're also going to talk a little bit about mental health, because obviously mental health is a huge issue for a lot of people right now, especially under lockdown. So we're going to try and talk a little bit about what is good mental health and what can we do during lockdown to make sure we keep good mental health. If you have any questions during the stream, do feel free to pop them in the chat. We do have a contact number and email address, so you can get in touch with us at any time outside of the stream as well, though. And that should be on the screen below me at all times. So, to start with, I am going to keep looking at my computer screen because I have a lot of notes. Okay. I feel quite technical today because I've got the camera here, computer screen here with the stream on it, and the chat and all my notes, and then another screen up there that's got all my kind of streaming software on it. So I feel like a bit of a tech god. Anyway, without further ado, let me move some screens around and we'll get started. There we go. I can see everything I need to see. Brilliant. Right, so I want to start by talking about mental health. Obviously, what we're facing at the minute are unprecedented times, and it being under lockdown, not being able to kind of necessarily go out and do what you want to do, see the people you want to see, etc. Also, not having access to some of the things that you might have had before, such as regular therapy sessions, whether that's with a therapist or doing something active as part of group therapy, things like that. Not having access to those usual things can put a lot of strain on people's mental health, but as well, just our ability to cope under these kind of situations can be put under stress, and that can create mental health issues for people that don't normally have mental health issues. So, I just want to talk a little bit about mental health to start with. Obviously, if you have any questions on anything at any point, not necessarily even just mental health, do feel free to ask, either on the stream, like I said, or using the stuff that's below me. So first of all, I'm going to talk about what is good mental health. Good mental health isn't necessarily about feeling happy all the time. It's more about control, in a way. People with good mental health can still feel anxiety. They can still have low moods. They can still, not want to get up out of bed and not want to do anything. The point is that mental health affects kind of how we think, how we feel, how we act, and when we are overwhelmed and are struggling to express our emotions or carry out the everyday tasks to even look after ourselves, take part in activities we enjoy, or even manage those relationships that we have with others, that's when we may notice our mental health is starting to struggle a bit. So if you have poor mental health under the lockdown, which is entirely understandable because it is a stressful time, there may be things we can do to kind of change that, and things we can do to kind of bring us back into those good mental health practices of being able to engage in activities we enjoy and build relationships with people, maintain relationships with people, and be in control of our emotions. And what I want to kind of reassure people about is that you don't need to have been diagnosed with depression or anxiety or anything like that to find your mental health suffers during something like this. This is a very unique set of circumstances, and we may find that the way we respond to it is to develop some of these poor mental health habits, as it were, or poor mental health kind of behaviours. That doesn't mean that suddenly you are going to be depressed for the rest of your life. It's just something we all have to struggle with, and we all are liable to struggle with. If you do feel, however, that things are a little bit too much and you do need support, there is a way to get that help. And one of the best kind of things you can do is reach out and ask for help. I'm going to show this now, and then we're going to talk a little bit about good mental health practices. But if you are struggling, you can self-refer to a 24/7 mental health helpline for urgent support. Please note this is just for people in Cheshire West, Cheshire East and the Wirral, which is the area that Chester Pride works in. So if you're outside those areas, you'll have to get in touch with your own NHS kind of services to find out what they can offer. But you can ring this number at any time if you need help. And that number is 0300 303 3972. I will show that again later on in the stream. Right, so just because, so struggling with your mental health, you may feel that you may just feel a bit listless, you may get irritable, you may feel sad, almost tearful or worthless, you may be eating more or eating less, you may be withdrawing and not communicating with friends and family or even those that you're in lockdown with, your sleeping patterns may have gone out the window, and you may have some quite dark thoughts, even thoughts around self-harm or suicide. Those are all things that people will legitimately feel during this lockdown because it is a high stress situation. But these mental health things, we can do little things to just make things easier and to address some of these kind of behaviours that we might have developed, as well as potentially seeking help through helplines like the one I just showed you. So how can we kind of look after our mental health during the lockdown? That's the big question. There's a few things. We are going to feel kind of stressful, isolated, and lonely. So what we need to do is kind of establish few routines, a little bit of self-care to help us feel a bit more normal, as it were. So that's the first point: is practice self-care. In any situation, the most important person you need to look after is yourself. You may have friends or family that are vulnerable during this crisis and do need extra support, but if you aren't looking after yourself, you can't really expect you to then help those people. So a little bit of self-care can go a long way. It's easy to get into those habits of wearing our pyjamas all day, eating junk food, and just lazing around. So we need to there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you feel like you want to do, but sometimes we can just take 5 or 10 minutes to maybe have a shower, put on a face mask, maybe do dress up a little bit to make yourself feel special, because it's not just about self-care is just having a bath or doing something that does make you feel a little bit better about yourself. You might not want to get changed out of pyjamas, you might want to eat junk food, but if that's what you want to do, then maybe get something delivered. There's quite a few great takeaways around Chester, delivering desserts, tacos, pizzas, Chinese, Indian, whatever you want. It's just something to break up the routine a little, treat yourself a little bit, make yourself feel a little bit better. It can be more proactive things as well, like making the active choice to drink a bit more water, or to actually make the choice to, like say, dress up a bit, to shower every day and put on nice clothes and make yourself feel good about yourself. That's what self-care is about, and it's important that we try and build in some of these self-care habits into a bit more of a routine as well, so that we don't just do them as a one-off and then forget about them. But we will get back onto routine in a little bit. Another great thing to do to keep your mental health good during lockdown is to exercise. exercise has proven to boost kind of your mood afterwards. It releases those endorphins, gets you going a little bit. You don't have to do a lot. Me and my partner here, for example, I've been doing a little bit of yoga every day, 10, 15 minutes, not very intense. We're not very good at yoga, I'm not going to lie. But by doing it, we feel a little bit better about ourselves and it keeps us active. If you do have a great garden, unfortunately we don't, get out into the garden while the sun's nice like it is today and try to do that little bit of yoga or exercise in the garden. As well, get that bit of sunshine in your life because vitamin D is good for you. Chest Pride itself, we are releasing a video every Friday of 5-minute exercise that you can do. So you don't have to do a lot, you don't have to do an intense amount, just as long as you're doing something. Exercise will make you feel better. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a huge amount. Do your once a day government mandated walk, for example, even if it's just around the block, 10 minutes, can make you feel a huge amount better, can help either break up or establish a routine. If you find yourself stuck in a bit of a rut, do try going for that walk or doing that little bit of yoga. Try our 5-minute exercise video because that can get you out of that kind of bad routine that you've got into, and then if you can find a way to create a new routine that includes exercise, you're on to a winner. Of course, if you are at risk, do be wary about leaving the house to do exercise and going on the walk because again you have to look after yourself and not put yourself into any unnecessary danger, and if that involves going outside, we don't recommend it. So another great thing to try and do, another mental health tip for a lockdown, is to try and check in with people and create almost a buddy group, as it were. It is weird communicating with people at this time because we can't physically see the people we care about, our friends and our family, but we can create these kind of buddy groups, as it were, group messages, group video chats, that sort of thing. I try and do one with my family every week, where me and my siblings and our partners all kind of chat together on a video call. Things like that. It's as well reaching out to people that may need a buddy during this time. So we at Pride are quite keen to support kind of members of our community, the LGBT community, that maybe don't have anyone that they can talk to or feel comfortable talking to because they have, issues around identity, sexual gender identity that they can't really talk about to anybody in their household. So do feel free to get in contact with Chester Pride, use the number that's below me, or send us a message on Facebook, or tweet us, or hit us up on our Instagram DMs, something like that, and we'll happily chat to you and have or find someone that can talk to you, because we have a wonderful bunch of people that always love to talk. So if you need someone to talk to and you can't talk to anyone at home, or you're struggling to reach out to people socially, Chester Pride are happy to talk to anybody. We love meeting new people. But it's as well, get those buddy groups going, check in with people, let people know they can check in with you as well, and together we can help each other get through this by kind of talking and connecting. That's an important thing. So another tip, I've talked about kind of routine a little bit. I just want to delve into that a little bit more. Establishing a routine is a really good thing to do to keep your mental health kind of where it should be, really. Giving yourself a set kind of get out of bed time, giving yourself a set go to bed time, building in time for a bit of exercise, a bit of self-care. You help to milestone the days and create a bit more structure that we can lack otherwise in this situation. And when we lack structure, we tend to kind of drift and distract ourselves, get distracted, become more aware of our emotions, and maybe less able to control them. So by creating a situation that gives us a bit more control, by having a routine, we can start to feel, like I say, on top of our emotions and in control again. It's a huge word to use, control, because it's always hard to have that sense of control, but it is an important thing to kind of try and foster whilst we're under these kind of quarantine lockdown conditions. If we're finding that we're struggling to keep the routine or getting bogged down in certain kind of negative behaviours that are associated and maybe part of the routine, we can try and distract ourselves a little bit and create new things to put into the routine or to break the routine a little bit, because having a break from anything is a good thing as well. So maybe we could try to develop a new skill, make time every day to paint, bake if you can get hold of flour, because I can't and it's really annoying because I love to bake. Bit of reading or any other crafting time, journaling, or maybe making time in the routine to do those check-ins with people and start that social group going, or even play online games with people, or just do something that distracts you from kind of that daily flow that you're getting bogged down in. And again, either building it into a routine or using it as like a bit of a self-care treat to break a routine can be a really useful thing. There are also, I know everyone's talking about getting a new skill whilst you're in lockdown, and that can be a great way to distract yourself and a great way to kind of foster that good mental health, and a great way to embed some positive things into a routine. But don't feel the pressure to absolutely nail a skill during lockdown. If you don't feel you can make the time, don't feel motivated to do it, don't worry about it. You don't have to come out of this thing speaking 10 languages and able to bake a 5-tier wedding cake. No one's asking you to do that. It's just if we can do little things every day, maybe a little bit of something that interests us, learning a language for example, or baking, or crafting, or talking to people, or going online gaming, whatever. It's just a great way to keep your mental health really positive. I think the final kind of thing to cover in terms of things that we can do to make ourselves feel better and to help our mental health is to be kind to ourselves a bit more. So often we can get bogged down in just being really negative. Oh, I didn't get out of bed till whatever time today. Oh, I'm eating too much junk food, I'm gonna get fat. Or I haven't learned French in 3 days, therefore I'm useless. That's not what this is about. You need to be kind to yourself and recognise that just doing what you do to get through the day can be enough sometimes. It's so hard to make every day an achievement, where an astounding thing when we're in this kind of situation. But sometimes getting through the day is an achievement. If all you've done is sat in your pajamas and eat ice cream, that's fine. Tell you, like, whatever you need to do to get through this, like, do it, because ultimately, as long as you get through it, you've won effectively. Focus on the positive things, focus on what makes you feel good, try to do a few more of those. So if talking to your friends makes you feel good, try and schedule in more time to do that. If playing games and sitting in your pajamas makes you feel good, do it, and recognise that there is a positive thing and it's helping you to get through this situation. Of course, just want to reiterate, if you feel like you are struggling at any time and you need to talk to someone, especially if you're having very dark thoughts or thoughts of self-harm or suicide, you can get that support. Just to give you that number again, if you live in Cheshire West, Cheshire East, or on the Wirral, you can ring 0300 303 3972 for a 24/7 mental health support helpline. You don't need to go through your doctor to be able to access this, and it is for anybody of any age as well. Okay, so that's mental health in a nutshell. It is very hard to. It's a very difficult situation. It's very hard to get through this for a lot of people. So don't worry about feeling bad. Just do what you can to keep your mental health up there, and focus on building that routine, giving yourself a bit more structure. Focus on what makes you feel good. Focus on building those social connections, talking to people like Jess Bride if you want, or any of your friends and family, and practice a little bit of self-care as well. Look after yourself, do a face mask, have a bath. You have my permission to just eat a full gallon of ice cream if that's what makes you feel better. Right, so now I'm going to change topic a little bit. And just a couple of weeks ago, on March the 31st, it was Transgender Day of Visibility. Now, we at Chester Pride are huge supporters of the trans and gender non-conforming community because they're a part of the LGBT plus community that we at Chester Pride work to support. And they're a particularly kind of victimised and misunderstood community at the minute. So for us, things like Transgender Day of Visibility are hugely important because they help us to do a bit more to support the trans community and raise a bit more awareness. Now, the Transgender Day of Visibility occurs every 31st of March every year and is an international thing. So you find stuff, events, information pops up all over the world for Transgender Day of Visibility. But what is it? Well, for Transgender... can't speak today. Just because I've got a lot to talk about, very limited time, so I rush, and therefore I mess up all my words. Transgender Day of Visibility is about celebrating the trans and gender non-conforming community. It's about celebrating the diversity of gender expression and identity, and celebrating the achievements of kind of non-binary and trans people just across the world, really, because they deserve to be celebrated, because they're blazing a trail, fighting discrimination, standing up and being heroes for all the LGBT plus community. At Chester Pride, we're very aware that ultimately the Pride movement started because of trans women, trans sex workers as well. So the first people to lead the crowds at Stonewall, the movement that the protest that kind of started the entire Pride movement, the Stonewall riots, they were led by trans women of colour that were sex workers. So we're very, very keen to support the trans community because we know that it's where the entire history of the Pride movement comes from. So what I want to kind of do is talk a little bit about what I mean when I keep saying trans and gender non-conforming and non-binary. Talk a little bit about kind of the challenges that trans people still face in society, and then talk a little bit, have some good news, spread some good stories about inspiring things that have happened just the past 12 months, either, trans kind of trailblazers or just positive news stories about trans and gender non-conforming people. Again, if you've got any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or ask us using the contact details below, or go on our Facebook or our Twitter or whatever to get in touch with us. So, where to start? First of all, what do I mean when I say transgender? When we talk about gender, we talk about the gender someone is given when they're born. So we look at physically what they have, what bits they're made of, and we assign them a sex, generally male or female. Rarely, I say rarely, 1 in 200 people are actually born intersex, but they may be given the sex of male or female because we don't know that at the time, because intersex is not just about having bits of both sexes, male and female. It's about so much more than that. It's about the kind of the endocrines, the hormones, just the chemicals that make you you, not just physically how you appear. But generally, when someone is born, we give them male or female sex, and then we bring them up to match that in the gender that matches that sex they are assigned. A transgender person they won't feel like the gender they have been assigned at birth and actually identify as the opposite gender, or maybe neither, and somewhere in between, as it were. Because we recognise that gender isn't just about male and female, it's about all the stuff in between as well, that we can have people that feel both male and female at the same time, somewhere in the middle. They might feel male one day, female the next, that sort of thing. So generally a transgender person is a person that's maybe, for example, identified as male at birth, but actually identifies in themselves as female, and they realise this as they grow up. So they transition, hence the name trans, from male to female or female to male. A gender non-conforming or gender non-binary person may not identify, like say, as male or female exclusively and exist in the space in between. So there are differences that kind of sex, how we are identified at birth, is generally based on their anatomy and biology. But what we mean when we say gender is it's typically about that kind of the role that men, male and female, play in kind of society, and it may be that someone's gender doesn't actually represent how they want to fit into society. So we may say they are male, and we may try to bring them up in a male way, but actually don't identify as male. They identify more as female and therefore want to be treated as such by society and fulfill the traditionally female roles. I mean, personally, for me, gender equality is all about breaking down those barriers between male and female and recognising that actually anybody can be anything and do any of those. Because the more we can do to kind of push feminism, which is a hugely important thing, the more we can do to stop women being victimised and bullied, sexually assaulted, etc., the better it is obviously for women, but the more we can start to better things for men as well, especially when you consider things like the way that masculinity is portrayed creates these huge pressures on men, and that can lead to these kind of emotional repressions. Like we always say boys don't cry. Well, they do, and they should, and we should encourage men to feel their emotions, because otherwise they bottle it up and they internalise it, and that's where we get things like high rates of male suicide. So for me, it's not just about helping women and being feminist, it's about breaking down gender roles entirely so that we can better support everybody, especially trans and gender non-conforming people. So when we talk about transitioning, we can mean both socially and physically. People will socially transition, so they'll start to dress in the opposite gender's clothes, or dress in a kind of a neutral way and not really express themselves as either male or female, and they'll start to kind of use the right pronouns that they want to use. So instead of referring to someone as he or she, we may use they, or the opposite. So if someone is assigned he, they may want to start being referred to using female pronouns, she and her, etc. We also may see them undergo physical transformations as they get physical treatments. So this can involve hormone therapy, being injected with more testosterone, estrogen, or many other things, or even kind of gender reassignment procedures where they have breasts removed, added, or genitals changed, that sort of thing. Everybody's transition is different. So some people will go down various different stages of physical transformation. Some people will go down various stages of social transformation. Some people may never really do one or the other, and that's fine. Like, everyone's journey is different, and it's about how they want to express themselves and how their gender expression, how they want to be perceived, kind of to the wider world. We don't need to know what's going on with their bodies physically. It's a bit rude to ask, really. So, like I said, everybody's journey is different, and it's not really for us to kind of question unless they want to share that information. All we have to do is just accept them and use the kind of like correct way of addressing them and respect their decisions. So not every person will have, for example, surgeries and things like that, and that's fine. That's their choice. What we can do to better support them, though, is kind of respect their pronouns, respect how they want to be referred to, whether that's as a male or female, or using the kind of neutral terms of they, them, or z's, etc. And we can do more to kind of support them as well, if I can find my notes about being a better, because what we as an LGBT plus kind of charity working with the LGBT plus community, we're aware that it's not just about the LGBT people that use our services and engage with us. It's about what we call allies as well. Now, ally is a person that might be straight, they may not be transgender or gay or bi or anything like that. They're kind of just a normal person, though what is normal these days, who wants to support the community. So they may have, a relative who's LGBT plus in some way, or they may just have great empathy and be a great person and want to support the community. So what we try and do is encourage this allyship, encourage everybody to be a champion of diversity and inclusion, and there's certain things we can do to better support the trans and gender non-conforming community in light of Transgender Day of Visibility. So respect people's gender expression, respecting how they want to be referred to, using their correct pronouns, even asking if we're unsure. If you come across someone, feel free to ask, oh, what pronouns do you use? We shouldn't be offended by that. We should just go, oh, I use this, thank you for asking. I know when I get asked, even though I'm not a trans person, being in the LGBT plus community, sometimes I get asked. Or I decide to offer that information. I will say, hi, my name's Richard, I use he, him pronouns. It's easy. Because, quite frankly, sometimes you see a person walking their dog and you go, oh, what a lovely boy this dog is, and the person will get really offended and go, oh no, it's a girl, and then you kind of go, oh, sorry, well, she's gorgeous, because what dog isn't? If we can do that with a pet dog, then why can't we do that with human beings? Simple. And just using a person's correct pronouns can make them feel so much better. Correct name, correct pronouns, so much better about themselves. What else can we say? Mistakes, that's a good one that's in my notes here. Quite often we get very, very concerned about making mistakes when it comes to supporting our trans and gender non-conforming kind of community. We may use the wrong pronouns, we may use their old name if they're a friend or relative that's transitioned, for example. But it's not necessarily about... Yes, we're going to make mistakes. Don't live in fear of making mistakes, and therefore try to do the right thing. And if you get it wrong, kind of listen to what the person's saying, understand how you've made the mistake, be accountable, take ownership of it, say sorry, because it's not that big a thing to do, and then commit to do better and don't make that mistake again. Because just kind of accept that you will make mistakes. Because nobody's perfect. And at the end of the day, as long as we learn from our mistakes, learn from when we misgender someone, learn from when we use the wrong name, then we've got nothing to worry about long term, because we'll start to get better at it and make those mistakes less often. And if we live in fear of doing anything at all because we're worried we're making a mistake, then we're not doing anything to be proactive and support the community. It's also just be wary about what we say as well, because sometimes it's not just about using the right pronouns, things like that. Sometimes you could be like, oh, you don't look trans, I couldn't have told, and things like that. And sometimes that can be implied to be negative and things like that. It's not a great way to kind of term it. So, although you may be trying to be complimentary, what you can say can be a little kind of what we call microaggressive, a little negative thing that kind of niggles at people that are trans. It's like being told just because you got blonde hair, for example, or gingers. Everyone makes fun of people with ginger hair. Oh yeah, gingers can't rub them together, they'll set fire, for example. Little jokes, bantery, things like that can actually be negative and quite harmful over time to people that identify as transgender, non-binary, or have ginger hair, for example. So it's about kind of, as we talk to people and make friends with people and find out kind of how we can better use our language and how we speak to each other and avoid those kind of bantery jokes that actually tend to be quite hurtful over time. As well, one key thing we can do to be a better trans ally is to share really positive stories about trans people and some of the fantastic things they've achieved. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, let me get back into my notes. So, several things to cover. First of all, I want to talk about games because I'm a huge gamer. It's what I like to do. I use games as a way to feel better about life, which is fine, as you know, keep your mental health good. Playing games with other people, playing games by myself, it all helps keep me sane. Two things that are great to celebrate around Trans Day of Visibility, two things that have happened in the gaming world, for example. First of all, Pokemon Go, the wildly successful game that gets you out of the house, so not a great one to play at the minute, though I believe they've made it better to play at home, have just revealed that the team leader of Team Mystic, Blanche, is in fact gender non-binary, gender neutral. They don't have a gender. They use they/them pronouns, for example. So that's great. The first time that not only has a non-binary person appeared in a Pokemon game, or even a video game that I'm aware of, but it's Pokemon, which is great. Blazing a trail there. Secondly, still related to video games, there is a game coming out from Don't Nod, the developer of Life is Strange Season 1 and 2, which is already a great series for its kind of lesbian and gay representation, but they're making a new game called Tell Me Why, which is coming out this summer to Xbox and PC, I believe. Follows the same kind of gameplay style, except that the two main characters are twins, and one is actually a trans person. And from the looks of the kind of trailers that I've seen, it looks like it's going to be a really great representation of trans people, because quite often in the media, trans people can be portrayed almost as caricatures, as jokes, for example. So this looks like a great representation of a trans person that doesn't just represent them as a caricature, it represents them as a fully fleshed out character. And it seems like the whole aim of the game is you dive through the memories of these two twins, reliving certain memories from both points of view, and you have to decide kind of which version of events you agree with, and through doing that you unlock this kind of tragic story, because you can't not have a tragic story. I just hope it has a happy ending. We'll wait and see. So that's really exciting. So hopefully we do a stream every Monday of video games, just Pride Plays. So hopefully we'll get to play that game when it comes out this summer, providing it's not delayed because of the whole virus thing. But it's just going to show how far we've come with kind of trans representation now, and we've got two major games from major developers that have really positive representations of a non-binary and trans person respectively. That is a fantastic thing to see. There are, I will admit, hundreds of games out there that deal with trans issues and LGBT plus kind of representation generally, but they tend to be quite indie or by kind of a one person kind of thing. So it's great to see major studios getting behind the trend. Hopefully this is the start of something bigger, and we'll see a lot more positive trans representation and non-binary representation in video games in the future. So talking about Pride, really, I suppose, next. So last September, London had its first ever trans Pride. This is a great thing to see, especially because we've had a trans Pride up here in Liverpool for a number of years, which is great. There's also been trans Prides in Brighton, places like that. But obviously London has a lot of visibility, and there was a huge, there was a very disruptive protest at London Pride last year, with some anti-trans activists kind of hijacking the parade. Oh dear. I'm getting YouTube errors. Bear with me. I'm going to have to just change a couple of settings to make sure. Let's boost that. Okay, hopefully that will sort things out. Let's wait and see. Okay, so let's try again. So, London Pride last year, 2019, hijacked by anti-trans activists, and the response from London Pride wasn't great. The trans community that takes part in London Pride didn't feel very supported, so they started up their own event. So, last September, London Trans Pride happened, and it was huge and spectacular and brilliant, and it's going to be going on again and again. Fantastic. Great to see another Trans Pride start, like I say, especially because we've had Trans Pride Liverpool for a couple of years now. However, there are a couple of negatives. It kind of shows that the LGBT plus community is becoming a little bit fractured, with some LGB members kind of going away, splintering off and saying they don't want to support trans, non-binary, asexual, demisexual, etc. people. They don't believe in the T plus part of the community. So the fact that we need to have separate prides that celebrate trans people and gender non-binary people is a bit of a disappointment, because they obviously don't feel fully included and represented in the larger LGBT plus events. It is also, though, a positive thing, because it is a wake-up call for events like ourselves that try to support the LGBT community as much as we can in as big a way as possible. So it kind of sorry, I still have to change the settings as I talk. So it kind of makes us think a little bit harder about what we do for the trans community and how we can better support them ourselves, which is only a positive thing, because ultimately we want to support every aspect of the LGBT plus community, because that's what we want. That's our job as Chester Pride, effectively. So it's great to see another Trans Pride event pop up, especially one that's so big and supported. So another thing to celebrate the visibility of on Trans Day visibility. Who else? So there's two fantastic one fantastic trans person, one fantastic non-binary person that I want to talk about. So we're going to start with the trans person, and I do apologies in advance because I'm terrible at pronouncing foreign names, because I'm a colonial imperialist throwback, apparently. So, Aisha Mughal recently represented the country of Pakistan at a UN conference on ending violence against women. Not just violence, discrimination against women. So, people from the UN has a lot of councils, a lot of conferences to discuss global problems, and one of them is the United Nations Convention to End All Forms of Discrimination Against Women. Pakistan has sent trans people to this before, but they've always been from what they call civil society, from charity or third-party groups related to the country but not officials of the country. This is the first time the Pakistani government has sent a trans person to be a member of this council, of this convention, as an official representative of the government. To my knowledge, I think it's the first time any trans person's been sent to this particular convention, and it's a great thing to see. Pakistan has come a long way in supporting transgender rights, which is fantastic. They've recently issued a kind of insurance card that lets trans people access it lets trans people access their medical services they need to for free within the Pakistani healthcare system, which is great. Of course, a system like ours in the NHS, the UK trans community can often access services for free anyway. However, there happens to be a lot, very long waiting lists for these sorts of things. But it's great to see a country that has private healthcare offer trans kind of necessary trans services for free, which is fantastic. And it's great to see Aisha Mughal kind of be chosen by Pakistan to represent them on one of the UN conventions as well. So she's fantastic. Another fantastic person, Amita Kutner, They are standing as a non-binary person. They are standing to be the leader of the Green Party in Canada. This will be the first time a kind of non-binary person has been kind of the leader of a major political party in Canada, and certainly within North America, and even the UK hasn't had a non-binary or trans person as a major party leader yet, which is disappointing. So she's joined the race as a non-binary person to become leader of the Green Party. I say she because still talking about Shamugal, but sorry, no. Amita Kutner, non-binary person, uses they/them pronouns, so I do apologise for getting that wrong. Learn from your mistakes. So they've just entered the race. The race is still ongoing, but they seem to have quite a lot of support behind them, so I hope they do it, especially because they seem to have some great policies. So we'll see what happens with that one. So yeah, trans people, non-binary people, are out there every day blazing a trail and just letting LGBT plus people of all sexual and gender identities know that it is possible to do amazing things no matter how you identify. So I think I'm going to leave it there on that positive note, because my stream seems to be going more and more wrong all the time. So yeah, thank you for joining me. I hope you've learned something. I hope you got some useful information out of it. If you need access to any help or support during this time, all you need to do is get in contact with Chester Pride using the number below, or I'm going to put up a title card in a minute that's got some great resources, great phone numbers for you to use to get access during this difficult time to support either for your mental health or just general support that you might need. So don't be afraid to get in touch if you have any questions at all at any time, and we'll hope to see you soon.